There is a moment, quiet and invisible, where everything decides itself. It does not happen out there. It does not announce itself with noise or effort. It happens when you hold a feeling long enough that it becomes natural, not forced, not hoped for, simply assumed. And the instant it is assumed, the world has no option but to rearrange itself around that inner decision. Most people believe change begins with action, struggle, repetition, or time. But real change begins with a feeling accepted as fact. A feeling that is no longer questioned. A feeling that is lived from, not reached for. When you understand this, you stop chasing outcomes and start occupying state. You stop trying to make things happen and start allowing things to follow. Feeling is the language reality understands, not words spoken aloud, not affirmations repeated without conviction, not effort. Feeling, the inner mood you return to again and again, the emotional climate you live in, that is what shapes experience. When you hold a feeling consistently, it hardens into fact, not because you forced it, but because you gave it residence. You let it stay. You did not rush it out with doubt. You did not interrupt it with impatience. You did not sabotage it with observation. You simply allowed it to be. Most people touch a feeling for a moment and then abandon it. They feel confident for a second, then look at circumstances and retreat. They feel secure briefly, then check the world for proof and collapse back into fear. They feel fulfilled, then ask, where is it? And lose the state. They treat feeling like a visitor instead of a home. But the law is simple. What you dwell in emotionally becomes the frame through which life must operate. Reality does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you are being. And what you are being is always revealed by how you feel when no one is watching. Holding the feeling does not mean pretending. It does not mean denying what your senses show. It means refusing to let appearances dictate your inner position. It means deciding, quietly and firmly, that the feeling of the wish fulfilled is more real than temporary. Evidence. The moment you hold a feeling without argument, something profound happens. The mind stops searching. The body relaxes. The nervous system settles. You are no longer asking life for permission. You are assuming alignment. And assumption is command. When a feeling becomes familiar, it becomes powerful. When it feels normal, it becomes law. Reality bends not to intensity, but to consistency. A calm feeling held steadily has more creative force than desperate emotion repeated 1,000 times. Think about the moments in your life that changed everything. They were not frantic. They were quiet decisions, inner shifts. Times when you simply knew, when something settled inside you, when you stopped negotiating, when you accepted a new identity internally before anything moved externally. That is holding the feeling. It is choosing inner certainty over outer persuasion. It is choosing emotional mastery over reaction. It is choosing to live from the end rather than reach toward it. Most people ask, how long do I have to hold the feeling? And that question reveals the problem. You do not hold a feeling until something happens. You hold it because it is who you are now. You are not waiting for proof to relax. You relax first, and proof follows. The world reflects states, not wishes. If you feel like someone waiting, you get more waiting. If you feel like someone trying, you get resistance. If you feel like someone becoming, you get delay. But when you feel like someone who already is, the world adjusts with precision. Holding the feeling is not effort. Effort belongs to the old state. The new state is ease. The new state is naturalness. The new state is calm authority. This is why forcing emotion never works. This is why affirmations spoken from anxiety collapse. This is why visualization without embodiment fades. If the feeling is not accepted as normal, it will not externalize. You must let the feeling sink below thought, below technique, below conscious management. It must become your default emotional posture. When you hold the feeling of being secure, life organizes security. When you hold the feeling of being chosen, people respond accordingly. When you hold the feeling of being respected, circumstances align to confirm it. When you hold the feeling of abundance, opportunities flow without strain, not because the world suddenly becomes kind, but because you stop offering resistance. Resistance is emotional contradiction. It is wanting one thing while feeling another. It is affirming confidence while living in tension. It is declaring certainty while internally checking for signs. Holding the feeling means ending that contradiction. It means allowing yourself to feel complete now, not later, not when conditions change. Now, the mind will object at first. It will say, but nothing has changed, and you must answer with silence. You do not argue with appearances. You do not explain yourself to the world. You simply remain. Silence is power. Stillness is command. Consistency is creation. The longer you hold a feeling without interference, the more momentum it gains. Eventually, it no longer requires maintenance. It becomes identity. And identity is destiny. This is why some people seem lucky. It is not chance. It is coherence. Their inner feeling matches the life they experience. They are not conflicted inside. They are not divided. They expect ease, and ease meets them. The moment you stop reacting emotionally to the old story, it begins to dissolve. Reaction is agreement. Attention is permission. Emotional response is reinforcement when something undesirable appears. And you remain internally unmoved. You are withdrawing belief. And what is not believed in cannot remain. Holding the feeling does not mean suppressing emotion. It means choosing which emotion gets residence. It means observing fear without adopting it. It means noticing doubt without hosting it. You are not required to fight thoughts. Thoughts dissolve when the feeling beneath them changes. Change teeth. Emotional ground. And the mental structure rearranges itself. This is inner leadership. This is emotional authority. This is mastery. You are not here to wrestle life. You are here to decide who you are and let light confirm it. The moment you truly accept a feeling as done, as settled as yours, the strain leaves your system. You stop trying to make it happen. You stop checking. You stop asking. You move differently. You speak differently. You choose differently. And those differences are invisible to you but unmistakable to life. Life responds to your state, not your words. Holding the feeling means you walk as if the bridge already exists. And when you walk that way, the bridge must appear not because you demanded it, but because your assumption requires it. This is why impatience delays things. Impatience is the feeling of not having, and life can only echo that. Patience is not waiting. Patience is certainty without urgency. It is knowing without tension. It is holding the feeling without watching the clock. When the feeling is secure, time collapses. Things arrive naturally, often unexpectedly, sometimes faster than imagined, but always in ways that feel inevitable. You will notice a shift when you are holding the feeling correctly. You will stop talking about it. You will stop explaining it. You will stop convincing others. You will stop proving anything. You will feel settled. And that settled feeling is the signal. Once you are settled, life begins to move. Not dramatically, not loudly, quietly, through chance meetings, subtle opportunities, small decisions that lead to large outcomes. You do not need to control the how. The how belongs to the world. Your only responsibility is the who. Who are you being emotionally? Who are you when nothing is happening? Who are you when no one is affirming you? That is the state that creates. Holding the feeling is loyalty to your chosen identity. It is faith without effort. It is knowing without proof. It is confidence without noise. And everything changes when you do this consistently. Your relationships soften. Your reactions slow. Your mind clears. Your body relaxes. Your timing improves. Your intuition sharpens. Not because you worked on them, but because the inner environment changed. The outer world is a mirror with a delay. Do not curse the mirror. Adjust the image. Hold the feeling of the person who already lives the life you desire, not in fantasy, but in emotional tone, in quiet expectation, in relaxed certainty. Let it feel ordinary, let it feel boring, let it feel normal. The moment it feels normal, it becomes permanent. And when it becomes permanent, reality has no choice but to follow, because life does not argue with conviction. It does not resist certainty. It does not delay assumption. Hold the feeling, remain unmoved, and watch how everything rearranges itself to agree with you. And even as the world begins to shift, you do not rush to label it as success. You do not celebrate prematurely or cling to signs. You remain composed, because the feeling you are holding does not depend on movement. It is not excited by progress, nor discouraged by pauses. It exists independently of outcomes. That is why it is powerful. When you truly hold a feeling, you are no longer emotionally invested in how it arrives. You are not scanning conversations for hints. You are not reading meanings into delays. You are not building stories around silence. You have already accepted the end internally, so the middle loses importance. This is where most people fail without realizing it. They believe holding the feeling means maintaining excitement. But excitement is unstable. It rises and falls. It looks for stimulation. The feeling that creates is quieter than that. It is steady, grounded, certain. Think of how you feel about something you already own. You do not wake up affirming it. You do not check whether it still exists. You do not feel emotional spikes around it. You simply know. That knowing is calm. That calm is the state you must learn to occupy. Holding the feeling means you stop emotionally rehearsing disappointment. You stop preparing for loss. You stop imagining failure just in case. Those habits are subtle, but they are powerful declarations. They tell life what you are loyal to. Loyalty to a feeling is everything. Few say you desire peace, but keep returning emotionally to tension. Life must echo tension. If you say you want freedom, but keep feeling constrained, life must confirm constraint. The words do not matter. The feeling does. The moment you choose a feeling and return to it again and again, gently and without force, you begin to train your inner world. And the inner world, once trained, governs the outer with precision. There is no need to watch yourself constantly. That creates strain. Simply notice when you drift and return. No judgment, no frustration. Just return. Return to the feeling of being settled. Return to the feeling of being secure. Return to the feeling of being chosen, successful, fulfilled. Returning is power. Every time you return, you weaken the old state. Every time you return, you strengthen the new one. States compete for dominance, and attention decides the winner. You may notice that certain situations try to pull you back emotionally. Old conversations, familiar environments, people who relate to the old version of you. Do not fight them. Fighting gives them weight. Simply remain internally unchanged. When you stop reacting, things lose energy. When things lose energy, they dissolve. Holding the feeling is not withdrawal from life. It is engagement from a higher position. You still act. You still speak. You stay, LL decide. But now your actions come from certainty rather than fear. Action taken from fear multiplies fear. Action taken from certainty multiplies order. This is why effort eventually exhausts people. They are trying to force outcomes while emotionally contradicting them. They push forward while feeling behind. They move while doubting movement. Holding the feeling removes this friction. You begin to move naturally toward what aligns with you, not because you planned it, but because the state draws matching circumstances. You will notice your preferences change. What once tempted you no longer does. What once frightened you no longer holds power. What once felt urgent becomes optional. Urgency disappears when the feeling is fulfilled. When urgency disappears, clarity appears. And clarity leads to precise decisions. These decisions often look small. A message you send. A place you go. A choice you make without thinking too much. Yet, those small movements carry the weight of your state. And because the state is aligned, the movement is effective. You do not need to manage. Results when the source is correct. There will be moments when nothing seems to happen. These are not failures. They are consolidations. Reality is reorganizing itself quietly. Structures are adjusting. People are being repositioned. Paths are being cleared. If you interfere emotionally during these moments, you slow the process. If you remain settled, you accelerate it. Settled does not mean power. Siva. It means internally complete. Completion is magnetic. Life is drawn to completion because it seeks resolution. And when you hold the feeling of completion, you offer life a pattern. It must complete externally. This is why doubt is so disruptive. Doubt introduces incompletion. It fractures the pattern. It tells life the story is unfinished. Certainty, even quiet certainty, finishes the story internally. And once finished internally, it must be published externally. You do not need to convince yourself aggressively. Aggression signals disbelief. Gentle acceptance signals truth. Let the feeling be soft. Let it be calm. Let it be understated. The deeper the feeling sinks, the less noise it needs. Eventually, you may forget you are doing anything at all. And that is when it is working most efficiently, because the feeling has become you, not something you are applying. At that point, the old identity feels distant, not painful, just irrelevant. You remember how you used to react, how you used to worry, how you used to wait. And it feels like remembering someone else. That distance is freedom. Freedom is not the absence of challenges. It is the absence of emotional captivity. It is knowing that no matter what appears, your inner position remains intact. When your inner position is intact, life negotiates with you differently. People sense it. Opportunities sense it. Circumstances respond to it. You are treated according to the state you occupy, not the effort you display. Holding the feeling is an act of self-respect. It is deciding that your inner world is not up for debate, that your emotional state is not subject to random events, that you choose who you are being regardless of appearances. And once that decision is made, it does not need to be repeated loudly. It only needs to be honored quietly. Quiet honor is powerful. It does not argue. It does not announce. It does not explain. It simply remains. And remaining is what changes everything. Remaining does not mean stagnation. It means stability. It means you are no longer pushed and pulled by every impression, every word, every delay. You are anchored. And when you are anchored, movement happens around you rather than through you at first. This steadiness may feel unfamiliar. The mind is used to motion, to analysis, to emotional spikes. When those begin to fade, there can be a strange quiet. Do not mistake this quiet for emptiness. It is alignment. It is the absence of resistance. It is the feeling of being internally finished. When you are internally finished, you do not need reassurance. You do not seek validation. You do not look for confirmation. You trust the feeling because it is self-contained. It does not borrow strength from circumstances. This is why the feeling must be held without desperation. Desperation is the emotional admission of lack. It says, I do not have. And life can only respond honestly. Holding the feeling is an act of ownership. You are not borrowing a future state. You are inhabiting it now. Ownership changes posture. It changes tone. It changes timing. You stop forcing conversations. You stop explaining yourself. You stop rushing outcomes. You begin to move with an unspoken confidence that does not need approval. Even when challenges appear, they feel different. They no longer feel personal. They feel procedural, temporary, like details being adjusted rather than threats to your identity. This is an important distinction. When your identity is settled, problems become tasks, not crises. And tasks do not disturb your feeling. They are handled and released. Most people live in emotional crisis because their identity is conditional. It depends on what is happening. When conditions shift, so do they. But when you hold a feeling independent of conditions, you become stable regardless of circumstances. Stability is authority. Authority is not dominance. It is inner certainty. It is knowing where you stand emotionally and refusing to be displaced. The world respects this. Not consciously, but structurally. Life organizes itself around stable centers. When you hold the feeling of being grounded, chaos cannot attach itself to you. When you hold the feeling of being valued, disrespect finds no entry point. When you hold the feeling of abundance, scarcity cannot settle. This does not mean negative events never appear. It means they do not define the outcome. They pass through without imprinting. You begin to realize that your emotional reaction was never protection. It was participation. Reacting gave events permission to linger. Remaining composed withdraws that permission. Composition is created. There will be moments when the old feeling tries to return. Old habits do not disappear instantly. They knock, they test, not to punish you, but to see if you still identify with them. You do not need to fight these moments. Fighting re-engages them. Simply observe and return to the chosen feeling. No drama, no commentary. Returning is not weakness. It is discipline. Discipline here is not rigid control. It is loyalty. Loyalty to the state you have chosen to live from. the more loyal you are, the more life mirrors that loyalty back to you. At some point, the outer world will reflect the inner shift so clearly that doubt becomes impossible. But by then, doubt no longer matters, because the feeling is already yours. This is the paradox. Proof comes after belief, but belief no longer needs proof once it is real. You may notice that you stop talking about your desires altogether, not because you are suppressing them, but because they feel private, complete, settled, like something already handled. When things are handled, they are quiet. Noise belongs to uncertainty. Calm belongs to certainty. This calm begins to spread into every area of your life. You respond slower. You choose more carefully. You waste less energy. You sleep differently. You breathe differently. Your nervous system adjusts to the new state. The body follows the feeling. Tension releases. Breath deepens. Movements become deliberate. This physical shift is not accidental. The body is always listening to the emotional environment. When the environment is safe, the body cooperates. Cooperation multiplies efficiency. You will find that things which once required effort now require timing. You are not working harder. You are arriving at the right moment. Right moments are attracted, not chased, holding. The feeling creates timing. Timing is one of the clearest signs that the state is active. Doors open without struggle. Conversations flow without force. Opportunities appear where resistance used to be. And through all of this, you remain unchanged. Not emotionally elevated, not dramatically positive, just steady. Steadiness is the mark of mastery. It is easy to feel good when things go well. It is powerful to feel settled regardless, when you can maintain the feeling. Through silence, delay, and uncertainty, you have crossed a threshold. You are no longer practicing. You are living it. Living it means you do not need reminders. You do not need techniques. You do not need rituals. You simply are. And being is the deepest form of holding. From this place, life does not feel like a problem to solve. It feels like a response unfolding. You do not push the river. You stand in it, and it moves around you. You do not command the world with words. You command it with presence. Presence is felt, and feeling is the beginning of all change. Presence, once established, does not fluctuate with opinion or outcome. It becomes your baseline. You may still experience thoughts, memories, or momentary reactions, but they no longer carry authority. They pass through without rearranging you. You remain the observer rather than the participant in emotional turbulence. This is the subtle mastery most never reach, not because it is difficult, but because it is quiet. There is no applause for inner stability, no immediate reward for emotional restraint. Yet this is precisely why it works. Reality responds to what is steady, not what is loud. When you hold the feeling consistently, you begin to notice something unusual. Life stops testing you in the same ways. Patterns that once repeated lose their grip. Situations that once demanded reaction resolve themselves without confrontation. This happens because the emotional charge that kept them alive is gone. Energy follows emotion. When the emotion is withdrawn, the energy collapses. And when the energy collapses, the form cannot sustain itself. You are not fixing problems. You are outgrowing them. Outgrowing happens internally first. As you remain in the chosen feeling, your standards shift. What you tolerate changes. What you accept changes. Not through effort, but through identity. You no longer resonate with certain experiences, so they fade naturally. Life always matches resonance. This is why holding the feeling must be done without impatience. Impatience reintroduces lack. It says the state is not secure. And the moment insecurity enters, resonance destabilizes. Security is the foundation of creation. When you feel secure internally, you do not rush, you do not cling, you do not grasp, you allow. Allowing is not passive. It is confident. It is the stance of someone who knows the outcome does not depend on effort. Effort belongs to uncertainty. Allowing belongs to knowing. This knowing is not intellectual. It is embodied. It is felt in how you sit, how you stand, how you pause before responding. It is in the space you allow between impulse and action. That space is power. In that space, you choose the feeling again, not forcefully, naturally, as a preference. The more often you choose it, the more automatic it becomes. Eventually, you do not choose at all. It chooses you. At that point, even external success does not disturb you. Praise does not inflate. Achievement does not intoxicate. You enjoy without attachment. Enjoyment without attachment keeps the feeling pure. Attachment introduces fear of loss. Fear of loss corrupts the state. Holding the feeling means enjoying what comes while remaining rooted in who you are. You may begin to see how others live reactively, how easily they are pulled by events, how much energy they give away. This is not for judgment. It is for awareness. Awareness strengthens commitment. You realize that the greatest luxury is not having everything you want, but not being disturbed by what you do not want. This is emotional sovereignty. From this place, desires arise differently. They feel lighter, less desperate, more like preferences than necessity. And because they are not loaded with need, they manifest cleanly. Need distorts creation. Preference refines it. Holding the feeling removes need. When need is gone, life responds generously. Generosity is natural when there is no pressure. You will notice that resistance in others softens. People meet you differently. Conversations change tone. Opportunities present themselves without struggle. These are not coincidences. They are reflections of your internal climate. The inner climate determines the outer weather. If your inner world is calm, storms pass around you. If your inner world is steady, disruptions lose force. This is why protecting the feeling matters more than explaining it. You do not owe anyone access to your inner state. You do not need agreement. You do not need understanding. Understanding comes later. Alignment comes first. Holding the feeling is a private act. It is between you and your inner knowing. It is not something you announce. It is something you honor. Honor is shown through consistency. Consistency without obsession. Consistency without monitoring. Consistency without fear. And as you continue to remain, something profound happens. The sense of separation between inner and outer dissolves. You no longer feel like you are waiting for life to catch up. You feel synchronized. Synchronization is fulfillment. Fulfillment is not a future event. It is a present state. When you live in fulfillment internally, life must eventually mirror it externally. It has no alternative, because reality is not independent. It is responsive, and responsiveness follows feeling. Responsiveness does not hurry, and it does not hesitate. It moves with precision, matching the depth of the feeling held rather than the urgency of desire. This is why those who remain composed often receive results that seem effortless to others. They did not push life into motion. They allowed life to align. Alignment feels different from effort. Effort is loud inside. Alignment is quiet. Effort argues with reality. Alignment assumes cooperation. When you are aligned, you do not feel separate from what you desire. You feel connected to it, as if it already belongs to your experience. This sense of belonging is critical. The moment something feels foreign, distant, or difficult, you have placed it outside your identity. And what is outside must be chased. What is inside unfolds. Holding the feeling means bringing the desired state inside your sense of self, not as imagination, but as emotional truth. You are not imagining being fulfilled. You are feeling fulfilled. And feeling is ownership. Ownership does not rush. It rests. As this resting becomes natural, your internal dialogue softens. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop justifying your worth. You stop explaining why something should work. You assume coherence. Assumption is quiet confidence. Quiet confidence does not seek reinforcement. It does not prepare arguments. It does not rehearse explanation. It simply exists, and existence alone carries weight. You may notice that silence becomes comfortable, not awkward, not empty. Comfortable. Silence no longer feels like absence, it feels like stability, and from stability, creation flows cleanly. Clean creation does not create chaos elsewhere. It integrates smoothly. It fits into your life without disruption. This is why holding the feeling produces outcomes that feel natural rather than dramatic. Drama belongs to resistance. Ease belongs to alignment. When ease becomes your baseline, life no longer feels like something you must survive. It feels like something that cooperates with you. Even challenges take on a different tone. They feel purposeful rather than punishing. Purpose is revealed when you are not emotionally threatened. Threat perception collapses when identity is secure. Security does not come from control. It comes from trust in the state you occupy. You trust that as long as you remain emotionally aligned, the path will continue to reveal itself. And so you stop demanding clarity. You move without needing the full picture. You take steps without anxiety. You raise tea without guilt. Guilt dissolves when you know you are already on course. This knowing allows you to enjoy the present without feeling like you are wasting time. Presence stops being a strategy and becomes a way of being. And as presence deepens, intuition sharpens. You sense when to speak and when to remain silent, when to move and when to wait. These decisions are not calculated. They arise naturally from the feeling you are holding. Feeling becomes guidance. Guidance feels effortless because it is not filtered through fear. Fear scrambles perception. Calm clarifies it. This is why emotional mastery precedes external mastery. You cannot see clearly when you are internally divided. But when the feeling is unified, perception aligns. Aligned perception leads to aligned action. Aligned action produces aligned results. And through all of this, you remain unchanged internally. You do not rise and fall with outcomes. You do not attach your worth to progress. You do not lose yourself in success or failure. You remain. Remaining is not stagnation. It is continuity. Continuity is what allows life to build upon itself without collapse. Each experience stacks naturally on the last because there is no emotional reset, no inner contradiction, no oscillation between belief and doubt. Oscillation delays. Continuity accelerates. Acceleration here does not feel rushed. It feels inevitable. Inevitability is the sensation that things are lining up without your interference. You are not managing the process. You are witnessing it. Witnessing replaces effort. Effort fades because it is no longer needed. And as effort fades, trust deepens. Trust deepens not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer dependent on perfection to feel settled. That is the true holding of the feeling. It is remaining internally complete while life catches up externally, knowing that catching up is not a question of if but, of alignment unfolding in its own precise way. And so understand this clearly. Nothing outside of you is waiting to decide your future. Nothing needs to be persuaded. Nothing needs to be chased. The moment you hold a feeling as final, life begins to reorganize in obedience to that inner decision. Not because you demanded it, but because you became it. What you consistently feel yourself to be becomes the law under which your world must operate. You do not change life by force. You change it by position, by where you stand emotionally when no one is watching, by the state you return to when nothing seems to be happening. Where creation occurs. That is where power lives. When you stop reacting, you stop feeding the old reality. When you stop doubting, you stop delaying the new one. When you hold the feeling calmly, steadily, without urgency or fear, you remove all resistance. And what has no resistance has no choice but to appear. So hold the feeling not dramatically, not desperately, but quietly and faithfully. Let it become familiar. Let it become natural. Let it become you. Because the world does not respond to effort, hope, or struggle. It responds to certainty. And once you decide internally, complete, and without compromise, everything else must follow.